So the end of 2024 really has some inspiring astrology in my opinion. And we're going to be closing off this month with a Capricorn new moon, which to me really makes December a month that has been something special. Now, we started off this month with a Sagittarius new moon and we're ending with a Capricorn new moon. And sandwiched in between that was a full moon in Gemini. So guys, we have had quite the Decembers thus far. A Mercury retrograde just concluded, of course, as we all know. The integration phase is in full effect. Mars went retrograde, so hello, that's going to be a story until February 25th. And then that integration phase is going to last until May. In between that, we're going to have another Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde late March or sometime in March. And we're going to be dealing with that energy pretty much through eclipse season. So to close off December with a new moon in Capricorn, yes, this week we're going to talk about a couple of squares that are happening, but I think the squares this week are actually going to be okay. Kind of reflective and kind of synchronistic for the holiday season. And I think a lot of people are going to be pissed off at home, just to be honest. So these squares are kind of reflecting nicely. But honestly, we are going to end this year just as it should end. And that is a little bit of complication, but a little bit of hope. And yes, maybe some aliens. Just kidding. So why don't we just dive right in, my friends? My name is Joe Theodore, astrologer and teacher. And if you enjoy this video, please consider liking the video, subscribing to my channel, and leaving a comment. And yeah, for anyone who is a longtime subscriber, you might already notice that I'm kind of trying a little bit something different here today. The thumbnail might have already kind of shocked you a little bit. And there might be a little music behind the video right now. I don't know. I'm just thinking about trying new things with the YouTube videos here, with still being my authentic self as usual. So my friends, let's take this back to the way I used to do videos here. We are going to have a Libra moon from Monday and Tuesday. We're going to have a Scorpio moon from Wednesday through mid-Friday. And we're going to have a Sagittarius moon from mid-Friday until Sunday night. And then Sunday night immediately begins the Capricorn new moon story. So we are literally going to be concluding 2024 with this new moon in Capricorn. And yes, 2 days later will be New Year's Day. So we're kind of just starting off the last 2 days of 2024 with this Capricorn moment. Now, as we know, new moons are very much about birthing intentions. So again, whenever we talk about astrology, we have to ask ourselves, where is Capricorn in your birth chart, right? Because that is really where this birthing, this intention setting, something will arise in that part of your life, and you will have to kind of like recognize, hey, what is it that needs some attention here? Because new moons to me kind of bring attention to something, and it's like, oh wow, I have an opportunity right now to kind of set an intention, to do something different here, to kind of move in a direction maybe I wasn't thinking about moving in, and now you kind of have maybe some of the intuitive insight to plant a seed there. But we're going to talk more about the new moon in Capricorn another day, probably not today. I want to maybe talk about that literally as we get into the new year. But that is something to note. We're going to have quite the moon transits leading up to the Capricorn new moon. I love Libra moons, I love Scorpio moons, and I love Sagittarius moons. Scorpio moons always make me a little bit melancholy, to be honest. I always kind of get in some feels, but those feels are always like kind of necessary because they usually allow me to go within and kind of like understand something deeper about what I'm experiencing for those couple of days. And I'm a Scorpio rising, so it's no surprise that I am known for my intense emotional moments, and anyone who knows me closely can definitely observe my Scorpio moon transits. And yeah, it's kind of when I get a little deep. So yeah, I don't know. How do you guys feel during Scorpio moon transits? I actually think a lot of subscribers here are Scorpio moons, to be honest, because my Scorpio moon video does really well here on YouTube, and I get tons of subscribers from that video. But anyway, that's a side note. But yeah, the lunar transits are great this week. Libra moon ruled by Venus, so we can't beat that, right? And Venus right now has been transiting in Aquarius and just came off of a trine with Jupiter, which to me was actually probably top 5 best transits of the year, if I really had to go out on a limb. I mean, anytime you have a trine between the two benefics in the sky, I mean, like, hello, this is quite profound, harmonious energy. And we're talking about two zodiac signs that are definitely going to be designing the new future, obviously. Pluto in Aquarius for 20 years. Jupiter has been transiting Gemini for, about 9 months now, 8-9 months. And of course, Uranus going into Gemini will be a massive story for the next 8 years. And that is going to very much reshape our reality, involving information, involving the swift moving chaos of the way we communicate. But also, I mean, on a personal level, this is going to be great. We're going to have a lot of sudden events and moments that really can shift our entire life in that part of your life. So if you have Gemini placements, really be prepared for some radical shifts, events, successes, yes, maybe some failures or course corrections, and a lot of unique opportunities and even people to enter your life. Because we have to remember, Gemini is very social. So this can be a very unique opportunity for people you engage with. And that's why I think in this age of Pluto and Aquarius, we're going to be dealing with really bringing the world together from all over the world, whether for the good or for the bad, whether there's a world war or whether there's peace amongst the chaos where all of humanity kind of says, hey, enough is enough. So the transit of Pluto and Aquarius mixed in with Uranus and Gemini is going to be a profound shift in reality. So again, dealing with the trine this past week, Venus trine Jupiter, we had a moment of insight. We had a moment maybe within our own life that was like, hey, listen, I think we need to really examine these parts of our lives and understand that there is a lot of pleasure and a lot of opportunity for beauty in these parts of our lives if we really want them to, right? So I think Venus was communicating to Jupiter, a planet of wisdom, and kind of maybe feeding us some intuitive understanding of pleasure and beauty and kindness and goodness. And of course, anything that could be harmonious, lovely, creative, and fun. I mean, I know for myself, there was a lot of beautiful energy coming my way, a lot of people complimenting me on my work, a lot of just love in the air, generally speaking. I just think people were getting along in my life a little bit more. And I mean, I just think a lot more people who are in love maybe amplified their love for their partners or for their friends. So I don't know, depending on what house topics, themes of life this was activating for you, I think really was kind of telling the story of all that. Now, when it comes to the squares for this coming week, we have Saturn in Pisces squaring Jupiter in Gemini, which will happen on Christmas Eve. And then we're going to have Mercury in Sagittarius squaring Saturn in Pisces again. Also, Venus in Aquarius will start squaring now Uranus in Taurus. So that's kind of part of the story this week. So we have 3 squares that are interesting. And honestly, it's Christmas week, and it's no surprise that the astrology wants to reflect a little bit of a challenge maybe within our domestic lives or within the domestic moments within this political moment in time. So I don't know, depending on where you are in the world, this might differ, but essentially, to me, squares and oppositions, guys, though, I mean, just to say bluntly, yes, everyone is like, these are the challenging aspects in astrology, but without squares and without oppositions, we would not grow. We would not learn a damn thing. So when I see Saturn square Jupiter right now, we're talking about anything that Jupiter, because again, Jupiter is retrograde, right? So there's a lot of self-reflecting going on with Jupiter and the Gemini part of your life, which is another reason why I think the Venus trine recently was so beautiful, because I think it did provide some positive, pleasurable insight to some of the self-reflection a lot of us have been doing. But Saturn squared a Pisces there, Saturn in Pisces has been an incredible teacher for how to maybe structure some vision that we really desperately need in Pisces right now. So this Saturn in Pisces transit, as many of you know, please share your experiences with your Saturn in Pisces transit if you'd like to. But Saturn in Pisces is trying to build from nothing. It is trying to take dreams and spiritual inclinations and just visions of our future potentially and anything creative and kind of make some foundation for it, right? So the square to Jupiter is kind of just giving an opportunity, in my opinion, to add a little bit of deeper insight and deeper wisdom potentially to what Saturn has been trying to build for you or kind of envision for you, if that makes any sense. So in some regards, yeah, there's going to be a little challenge somewhere in your life. There might be just a little bit of deeper contemplation, but really Saturn is one of the biggest master teachers aside from Jupiter. The master teachers of the zodiac are Saturn and Jupiter. So when they're squaring each other, they really need to come to some kind of reconciliation on some higher knowledge that will benefit you in the physical reality, because Saturn wants to keep you grounded. Saturn wants you to build and stay structured and to learn in this lifetime. And Jupiter is kind of the higher dimensional force of wisdom and healing that can provide that expansion of consciousness and that expansion of whatever it is that you are trying to manifest. Now, the other squares here, again, like I said, Mercury and Sagittarius will square Saturn again. So again, when we're talking about just a couple of days later, the mind of Mercury, right, in the sign of the philosopher, in the sign of Jupiter, right? So we're talking about how Jupiter is very much in communication with this Mercury transit and was a huge part of the Mercury retrograde. But now it'll be squaring Saturn. So again, Saturn is kind of playing a really big role in the last week of December here, which means that, hey, there's a big message Saturn is trying to get through to us. So the Pisces part of your life, honestly, really meditate on that. What is going on in Pisces for you? What has your Saturn and Pisces story been about? Because not only is Jupiter trying to teach you something and offer some wisdom during its self-reflective moment while retrograde, but also Mercury, the mind, the communicator, is trying to bring something from the Sagittarius part of your life, where in the recent retrograde, I think had a lot to do with coming to some kind of understanding on a deeper level of personal philosophy and belief. So I know for a fact all of us are trying to come into some new sense of truth for ourselves. I know for a fact on the world stage we are trying to gauge some element of truth, what is really going on in this world, what is really going to happen with leaders in the world, what is really going to happen in American politics, for example, what is actually going on with the drones and all this other wild stuff. And yeah, what is going on for the future, because there is a lot of tension involving what could come. And if you know astrology, you know that these outer planets are paving the way for a total collapse and rise of how the world is run. And honestly, when it comes to this square on the world stage, I mean, again, I know that there's some kind of government shutdown looming in America. I don't know if that's going to happen, but these squares would be very much primed for a pretty intense week involving things involving that. So I would not be surprised if on the world stage there was a lot of challenge involving again, communication and getting things passed or coming to some kind of agreement on something. So again, as I'm recording this, I don't know what's happening with American politics, so to speak, involving this bill that was supposed to be passed to prevent a shutdown of the government. But if the government shut down, I would not be surprised with some of these squares, my friends. But that being said, Mercury and Sagittarius squaring Pisces again. We're talking about communication. We're talking about the mind. We're talking about the experiences you went through during your Sagittarius retrograde, and that kind of coming into play with whatever Saturn story has been with you. So again, there's something from Sagittarius to Saturn and Pisces that is very much trying to speak to you, and Saturn is very much trying to work with whatever it is that you believe in. And Venus in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus. This transit to me is just another little bit of challenge, another little bit of understanding in one's own experience involving what's going on in Taurus for you, of course. Now, the Aquarian moment with Pluto is always going to be causing some drama for the time being. And again, we're dealing with squares from the Aquarian age, so to speak, to the old way of being. So again, we're wrapping up stories with Taurus. And again, Uranus and Taurus for you could have played out in a billion different ways. I think when it comes to fixed Earth and Taurus, and we're dealing with Venus's sign of Taurus, I mean, I don't think this square is going to be as wild as people may want to. I just don't think it's going to be that crazy. On the world stage, I think we're going to see a lot more of these squares maybe amplify up a little bit. But in our own life, again, Venus really just wants to bring pleasure to our life. Venus is just beauty. Venus wants us to receive all of the good things, right? So when it squares something, we're talking about there being a little bit of a block involving that pleasure. But when we deal with Uranus, we're dealing with the sudden nature of how things can come to life, how things can manifest in your reality. So again, Venus is going to try its very best to be offering that pleasure to the Taurus part of your life. And honestly, considering Taurus rules Venus, I think you may actually be surprised on what could come into your life that could provide you pleasure, maybe something you didn't expect. And then the last thing I would like to talk about, honestly, is just really quick Mars retrograde. Mars retrograde is continuing to move backwards, making more and more stronger oppositions to Pluto in Aquarius. So if you remember leading up to November 1st, we were having Mars continue to apply stronger and stronger oppositions to when Pluto was in Capricorn. Now the reverse is happening. Now we're having Pluto in Aquarius line up more and more strongly to transiting retrograde Mars. So this is why on the world stage specifically, we are seeing a more intensification of a lot of stuff going on. We're seeing the intensity of what's going on as Trump builds his administration, right? What's going on within his administration, what's going on within conflicts around the world. We cannot underestimate actual conflict around the world involving Mars in Pluto. We're talking about power. We're talking about the god of war, conflict, assertiveness, passion, and action facing off against the shamanic force, which is intensity, power. And yes, we can have destruction, but also rebirth. So there's so much opportunity when it comes to Pluto. But Mars going opposite Pluto, and especially in our lives, we're talking about power. We're talking about movement, and we're talking about, again, having a restriction of some of that in our lives. So again, Mars retrograde in all of our lives, I think, is providing a story of re-strengthening, restructuring. A lot of us are preparing for things to come in the near future. And I think the more Mars retrogrades and makes stronger oppositions to Pluto, the more intense some of our work and some of our preparations might become, which actually, when we use it to our benefit, can be a wonderful time to really get those ideas and the things that we want to achieve in the near future, involving the Cancer part of your life, involving the Leo part of your life. And of course, all these energies can trickle into other parts of your life. But really now, through January 6th, is a really important time, because these oppositions will provide us with incredible force and intensity to very much manifest the preparation, re-strengthening, and restructuring that we need for some of the goals and endeavors that we're trying to accomplish. All right, my friends. Well, that's all I have for you for this weekly forecast. I do hope that you enjoyed some of these insights. Once again, if you're new, please consider subscribing to the channel, and of course, like and comment if you will. That really helps the algorithm. All right, my friends, I'll see you in the next video.